to the launch of the Global Thalassaemia Review. My name is Damon Embling. I'm an international journalist and broadcaster working for the international television channel Euronews, and it's a great pleasure to be here today hosting, presenting and moderating this very special virtual event. Of course, today's premiere is taking place in the context of the International Thalassemia Day, and it's great to have all of you joining us on this event today for this very important moment in the thalassemia calendar. In a moment, I'll be handing the floor to Panos Ghebreyesus, the president of TIF, and also Dr. Tedros, who's the Director General of the World Health Organization. They'll be giving us some opening remarks to get us underway. So they'll be joining us in just a few moments. But first of all, I'd just like to give you a glimpse and a reminder really of the International Thalassemia Day and how it started 27 years ago now in loving memory of George Ghebreyesus and all the thalassemia patients who are no longer with us. George, who's the son of TIF's president and founder, Panos Ghebreyesus, belonged to a new generation of patients with thalassemia who had the privilege to receive quality therapy. He and his father were altruistic in raising social and state awareness of the condition and the needs of thalassemia patients to confront the social stigmas and empower other patients living in Cyprus. Now, George passed away on the 8th of May, 1993, leaving a legacy of determination and renewal of promise to keep fighting until the final cure for thalassemia is found and is accessible to every patient right around the world. Now, the theme for this year is addressing health inequalities across the global thalassemia community. And today we'll be discovering and looking at all of these inequalities, and we'll be learning more about the Global Thalassaemia Review, a big work of reference on the current status of the condition globally. But first of all, I would like to welcome to the floor Panos Ghebreyesus, TIF's president and founding member, for his welcome address. So over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. Honorable Director General, Honorable Ministers of Health, distinguished guests, dear friends and colleagues. Welcome to this virtual event in respect and honor of the 8th of May International Thalassemia Day. Through the official launching of the Global Thalassaemia Review 2021, during this event today, deep and respect and sincere acknowledgement are paid to each and every patient with thalassemia that we lost, to each and every family that went through the painful journey of losing a child, a relative, or a friend. Deep respect to the hundreds of thousands of patients and families who are struggling today for better health and quality of life, improved medical and social care, and access to new innovative therapies. The Federation's seminal work on the current status of thalassemia services globally, developed in the context of our collaboration with the World Health Organization, reveals today the reality and the innate truth through the eyes and voice of the patients themselves. I feel truly privileged and greatly blessed to represent the Thalassemia International Federation, not as a president, which is a position, of course, giving me immense honor for more than 35 years, but in a capacity that no facts and no one can argue, doubt, or dispute of its sincerity and relevance. That of a parent who has lost a child with thalassemia in his mid-20s back in the 1990s. A capacity that changed the scope and aim of my whole life. A capacity that guided and continues to drive my work at TIF. I have lost a son who, for 27 years, struggled every day of his life with amazing dignity and endless hope to live and live productively with thalassemia. Elements that characterize every patient with thalassemia I have met in my 50 years of work and integration with them, and elements that I most admire and are very close and dear to my heart. Alongside all these 27 years of my son's life, the family and myself made our own fight, like all parents across different countries, cultures, religions, ethnicities, and languages, to advocate, to search, to share knowledge and experiences. Despite everything, however, the disease unfortunately won the battle. I lost my son on the 8th of May, 1993. After his death, I was left with a big dilemma. Should I abandon the effort, having lost my focus and reason for fighting, or should I continue to support others with this disease, honoring my son's memory? The decision I took was a decision of my heart and my conscience, and in which the mind had no contribution. It was a decision I'm sure most parents would have taken. Honorable Director General, ladies and gentlemen, working and fighting for better future for patients with thalassemia across the world became my scope in life, and TIF turned to be indeed my second, and on many occasions my first home. I have met and worked with partners and families, shared their concerns, lived the disappointment and despair. But above all, I experienced with willingness the greatness of their soul, the amazing courage, determination, and thirst for life, despite the many and multiple daily lifelong challenges. These were elements that made us all involved in this work, that made us all truly and genuinely very proud of each and every one of them, and gave us all the sense to worth and immense value to our efforts. My story is the story of every parent who has lost a child, and the story of TIF. It is the story of every patient with thalassemia across the world. As we involve patients and parents through the gates, enter into deeper and deeper waters through the work of TIF, the huge inequalities and the tragic violation of patients and human rights were those elements that mandated our purpose in the direction of TIF's work. The presentation today of the Global Thalassaemia Review 2021, covering the patient's perspective, I need a milestone in the history. Is needed a milestone in the history of TIF and the proof of the incredible value of patients' engagements. Honorable Director General, the evidence demonstrates that the biggest enemy we need to address today is indeed not the disease itself, but the huge inequalities which exist within and across populations, countries, and regions of the world, and which results in the many and important unmet needs of our patients, threatening their health and even their very survival. I am confident that we are all in agreement that action is needed now, and that the support of all stakeholders, importantly of the World Health Organization, is in the upcoming years, which will certainly be more difficult and challenging as safeguarded. I thank you very much.
Panos Inglesos, thank you very much indeed for your very personal and very poignant words, which I really think set the scene for the importance of today's event and all of us coming together. Thank you very much indeed to you for your opening remarks. And of course, we'll be hearing from you a bit later on again as well. But thank you very much indeed, Panos, for now. Now, I have the honor to invite Dr. Tedros, who's the Director General of the World Health Organization, to make a few remarks. And as his statement is playing, please remember to keep your microphones on mute. But let's now hear from Dr. Tedros.
Dear colleagues and friends, I'm pleased to welcome you to the launch of the Global Thalassaemia report. Every year, more than 300,000 infants globally are born with thalassemia syndromes, sickle cell anemia, or other hemoglobin disorders. Thalassemia is most common in Asia, the Mediterranean basin, and the Middle East. Sickle cell anemia predominates in Africa. Increasing global migration has introduced hemoglobin disorders into many areas where they were not originally endemic. These are disorders that we can not only manage, but also prevent through comprehensive integrated national programs that can successfully reduce morbidity and mortality. While some countries have successfully implemented these prevention and management measures, there are still far too many which have not. That means that many people, including children, are still suffering and dying from these preventable and manageable disorders. This report makes an urgent call on national governments, civil society, and development partners to implement programs in every country to fight against thalassemia and other hemoglobin disorders. Let's come together to end the suffering and give every child the chance for a brighter future. I thank you.
That was Dr. Tedros, of course, the Director General of the World Health Organization, commenting there on the importance of today's event and the premiere of this Global Thalassemia Review in his effort to raise awareness of the public health issues around thalassemia. So thank you very much indeed to Dr. Tedros for his very important statement today. Now, as he was saying in his statement there, thalassemia used to be fatal, but is now preventable and manageable, of course. John Porter is a professor of hematology and an international expert on thalassemia, and he's joining us today for this event to give us a scientific retrospective. John Porter, over to you.
Thank you very much. It's a privilege to be speaking at this important meeting. So in the next few minutes, I'm just going to give an overview of some of the milestones that we've had over recent years, and in fact going back several decades, in the management of thalassemia syndromes. So I'm going to start by talking about the scientific understanding of hemoglobin disorders just very briefly, because that underpins any treatment advances. Then I'm going to go through the chronology of thalassemia treatments over several decades to see how transfusion...
Professor Porter, sorry,
Yes.
The screen is not shared.
Is it not? Okay,
No.
let's try again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Porter. We can see the screen now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I hope you can see the screen clearly now. Is that okay?
Yes, it's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you for that introduction. It's a privilege to be speaking at this important meeting. I'm going to talk about some of the milestones in thalassemia treatment over recent decades. And it's not advancing. So I'm going to start by talking about the scientific understanding of hemoglobin disorders. because they underpin any advances in treatment. Then I'm going to go through what's often referred to as standard treatment, which has been transfusion combined with chelation, how this has led to significant improvements in quality of life and also in survival. I'm going to talk about how that compares with bone marrow transplantation as a curative option. And then I'm going to touch very briefly on emerging therapies, because there's several of these coming through, and these could have a significant impact both on quality of life and on outcome. So here we can see a chronology going back to the 1920s, right through till today. And we can see that the condition of thalassemia was first described by Cooley in 1925. Although the clinical description was made, the understanding of the processes underneath it was really very incomplete. And during the 50s and 60s, the structure of hemoglobin was understood, and the fundamental idea that thalassemia resulted from imbalance in globin synthesis. Normal hemoglobin contains balanced amounts of alpha and beta globin, and if you don't make enough of one of those, then this damages the developing cells in the bone marrow and also any cells that are then released into the blood. And another very important set of advances occurred in the 1980s when the genetic underpinning of thalassemias was really worked out. And it became clear that there were over 200 different beta thalassemia mutations, for example. And due to other advances in diagnosis, it then became possible to do prenatal diagnosis on very small samples of chorionic villus as early as 10 weeks of pregnancy. And this then opened up the whole prospect of doing antenatal diagnosis with disease prevention, which is a critical part of the overall management of thalassemias. Now, you can see in the bottom now how that links into changes in treatment. The blood transfusions really became available in the 1950s and 1960s on a regular basis. And this led to iron overload, and we needed treatment to remove the iron. And the first drug that was given was desferrioxamine. This has a very short half-life, and as a result, needs to be given what we now know as an infusion, but that wasn't known initially, so it didn't work very well until infusions came in. Bone marrow transplant as a therapeutic option, curative option, came in first in the 1980s. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then one of the problems with desferrioxamine as a chelator is that it's not effective by mouth, it's actually given as these infusions, and oral chelators came in the 80s and in the new millennium. So we now have two oral chelators, deferriprone and deferricyrox. Both of them need to be managed quite carefully. Another very important advance in the overall management of thalassemia was the development of MRI or CMR to measure iron both in the liver and in the heart. And we now have a much better understanding of the links between tissue iron and tissue damage. So this has been very important in the overall management of patients. Curative options have always been a goal, and one of the problems with allogeneic bone marrow transplant has been hitherto it's only been really available to people who've got a brother or a sister who are a complete match. And so the idea of gene therapy, which in principle could be available to all patients, has been a long-term goal. We've now got very exciting new data on its use in thalassemia, which I'll touch on very briefly. So let's try and go forward. Another important thing to say is that I alluded to the fact that people are surviving longer, but you can see the figures, in fact, in the 1980s, 2000, then from up to 2010, the number of deaths per 1,000 patient years has fallen from 12.7 to 4.3 to 1.65 in countries which have access to both safe blood and affordable chelation. And that's a very important part. We need to work on that on a global basis to make it available to the widest possible number of people. And these are some examples of improvement in survival curves in UK, in Italy, and in Greece. And you can see that in birth cohorts, the survival has significantly improved since the 1960s right through till today. It's not perfect, and that's one of the reasons that people are still looking for improvements. It's very challenging treatment. Blood needs to be given every 2 to 4 weeks. Patients need to have chelation therapy, and it needs to be monitored, both in terms of overdosing and underdosing. It's very demanding, and obviously everyone would like a simpler treatment, but it does work when it's taken. And here you can see a scheme of what's happened to some of the complications from thalassemia over the years. So you can see in the 50s, people were really dying of anemia, as shown in the pink. And as we go into the 70s, you can see that people started to die from iron overload. This is mainly iron going into the heart from blood transfusion. And it was only as chelation became more available and easier to take that survival improved. So you can see that current cohorts, mortality from iron overload, mainly from heart iron, has gone down very significantly. And the main causes of mortality now, excuse me, relate to the liver, hepatitis C, and in fact to infection and malignancy. So that it's been, and the overall mortality, as we've already seen, has dropped very significantly. The age distribution in cohorts where these kinds of treatments have been available has changed. This is just a snapshot from our own clinic showing that the age distribution has changed from 1975 through to 1985. They're becoming younger. There are very few patients under the age of, say, 15 in the UK, because we have a very effective screening program for thalassemia. So the distribution curve will not only depend on treatment, but also on prevention. There are remaining issues with thalassemia, however, and there are various reviews. And I think the work of TIF here is going to be really helpful in defining what the remaining issues are with a little more focus. This figure I give at the top here of 12% of children with transfusion-dependent thalassemia receiving adequate transfusion therapy. This is from a review by Bernadette Medell. And it's actually very difficult to put this data together in a reliable way. But that's a shockingly small percentage of patients who could receive transfusion who are getting effective transfusion, if those data are accurate. And less than 40% of those who are transfused actually get adequate chelation therapy. So that's another issue. The treatment is expensive. The cost varies from country to country. In the UK, for example, the lifetime treatment cost up to the age of 50 is somewhere in the region of £500,000, very expensive. And then when we're developing new treatments, we have to bear that cost in mind to see how that relates. So in fact, when it comes to bone marrow transplantation, the cost of transplantation, depending on the country we're thinking about, is somewhere in the region of 5 to 8 years of regular treatment. So a curative treatment could, in principle, have an advantage. The other demanding thing about transfusion chelation, it needs to be maintained throughout life. If there is a period of time when the individual is unable to take regular chelation, regular transfusion, this can have a permanent impact on quality of life and actually survival. So there is a need for curative therapies, and the first one that was developed was stem cell transplantation, which I'll just mention briefly, and then I'll also mention gene therapy. So stem cell transplantation was first introduced in 1982 by Lucarelli's group in Pesaro in Italy, and he developed a risk classification which allowed the identification of patients who were better or worse risk and help make decisions about the timing of transplantation and the selection. It's clear that transplantation needs to be done early, and the survival is much better in those who are transplanted before the age of 5 to 7 than those subsequently. Survival has been improving over the years, so the European Bone Marrow Transplant Registry has shown that long-term survival in sibling matched transplantation is in the order of 91%. Increased experience has now been gained in adults, also with matched unrelated donors, and also with haploidentical transplants. These we don't have time to explore in detail, but the scope of transplantation is increasing. There are other approaches. So what are they? Well, there's improvements in non-curative management. I've alluded to the use of MRI. There's improved safety and provision of blood. A lot of work's going on to try and find better ways of screening for infections in blood, for new ones that might develop in the future. And then there's non-curative therapy with drugs. And I will mention one of these, luspatercept, which is a very interesting drug which improves the quality of red cell production. There's interest in many drugs that relate to manipulation of hepcidin and manipulation of iron delivery to the bone marrow, which can improve the quality. Gene therapy has already been successfully shown with lentiviral vectors, and there are trials ongoing now with different types of vectors called CRISPR. I'll just mention that. And then as I mentioned, we're also improving the quality of stem cell transplantation. So gene therapy was first thought about in the 1980s. Progress in understanding beta genes occurred in the 1990s. And there were some initial problems with lentiviral vectors with unwanted serious side effects, but these were sorted, and there was a revival in their use in the 2000s. The first patient to be successfully transplanted using a lentiviral vector was in 2008. And this is the patient who's maintained successful transfusion-independent survival since that time. So this was a very exciting identification in a patient with hemoglobin E beta thalassemia. The principle of gene therapy is to introduce a gene correction ex vivo outside the bone marrow by collecting stem cells and then reinfusing the corrected stem cells into a patient who's received myeloablative chemotherapy. At the moment, that has to be given with busulfan, and then hopefully will be advances in future using other forms of myeloablative therapy. So the patient is regenerating from their own bone marrow, and that reduces the risk of graft versus host disease, for example. So these are some recent results with what's called commercially as Zynteglo, developed by Bluebird Bio. This has completed phase 3 pivotal trials in non-beta 0 thalassemia, so the less severe forms. And the mean weighted hemoglobin in steady state post-transplant is about 12, so very good levels of hemoglobin. And 72% of patients have been able to stop chelation therapy as well. It's received a view from the European Medicines Agency, which says that it is indicated in patients 12 years or over with transfusion-dependent thalassemia of the non-beta-beta 0-beta-0 genotype. We hope that when the data on the beta-0 comes through, that recommendation will be widened. The problem with this is it's very expensive at the moment, and it hasn't been adopted very widely yet, partly because of those considerations. Finally, there are non-curative innovations which are coming through, which I'll just touch on. We can improve the hemoglobin production by having fetal hemoglobin promoters. We can have manipulation of iron in the body, which improves the quality of erythropoiesis by manipulating hepcidin through various mechanisms. And there is this new drug called luspatercept, which decreases the amount of ineffective red cell production. So this is going to be my last slide. And luspatercept is an activin receptor ligand trap that has been shown to improve late stage red cell production in the bone marrow. It's just completed a phase 3 study in over 300 patients over 18 years of age against placebo. And the primary endpoints were reached in 21% of patients with a 33% reduction in transfusion burden, and 11% of patients became transfusion independent. It was actually remarkably well tolerated, and it's been approved by the US Drug and Food Administration and the European Medicines Agency. This approach is probably also going to be very helpful in managing patients who are less transfusion dependent, but are also anemic, such as thalassemia patients. So I hope just quickly we've gone over the history of standard treatment with transfusion chelation, the development then of bone marrow transplantation, its future going forward, possibly offering a treatment to a wider range of people, and then new curative approaches with gene therapy and new drugs to improve the quality of red cell production in patients with thalassemia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Professor John Porter, there for your scientific retrospective of thalassemia and your fascinating insights. Thank you very much indeed for all of your time and joining us from the United Kingdom today. Now, of course, the Global Thalassemia Review is the big focus of today's virtual event. It's the premiere. Behind this document of reference is Dr. Androlu Aleferiu, who's the TIF's Executive Director. And also behind this important document is the medical advisor, Dr. Michael Agnasti-Niotis. It's a work of reference that's been developed in the context of official relations that are in place between TIF and, of course, the World Health Organization. And now I'd like to invite those two very important doctors behind this piece of work to take to the floor to talk us through what they found out and the importance of their findings right now. And I think we're going to start with Dr. Andrula.
Honorable Director General of World Health Organization, President and members of Thalassemia International Federation, distinguished guests, it is a pleasure and a real privilege for me to present on behalf of Thalassemia International Federation, TIF, jointly with its medical advisor, Dr. Michael Agnasti-Niotis, a brief outcome of the key messages and results of the Global Thalassemia Review 2021, which is really, which is a deliverable in the context of the work of TIF with World Health Organization as a non-governmental organization in official relations with World Health Organization, a status that TIF enjoys since 1996. And I'm very honored that Dr. Victor Boulyjenkov, who is participating today, has been a key contributor to achievement of this status of TIF. The aim of the Global Thalassemia Review is really to capture the patients' and families' perspective on the appropriateness, effectiveness, and quality of the services they receive in their respective countries. And in this context, contributors to the information and data contained in a 547-page global review comes from responses, information and data from the patients and families themselves through questionnaires, surveys, webinars, through the National Thalassemia Associations in nearly 200 members, over 60 countries across 6 regions of the world, as these are defined by World Health Organization, and through TIF's patient advocacy groups, today nearly 200 at the national, regional, and international level. Information has been retrieved through independent reports by national competent health authorities with which Thalassemia International Federation enjoys official relations in some countries across the world, and through members, very importantly, of TIF's global healthcare professional across medical and scientific disciplines networks, today over 500 across 62 countries. Through published literature, albeit very confined, and of course through the invaluable work of World Health Organization, disease-specific, but also disease and public health related programs, guidelines, resolutions, decisions, and recommendations. So in most of the work through this global review, there is information obtained through a global 2-year duration survey involving many national thalassemia associations and over 4,000 patients. But there is information based on topic-specific surveys as well. So there is a global survey, but for each topic covered in each of the chapters of the global review, there is also a shorter topic-specific survey. I need to acknowledge the fact that in the absence or largely confined presence of national disease-specific registries and updated epidemiological or micromapping work, or even any epidemiological work in many countries and populations with high disease prevalence, and hence the absence of nationwide information and data that could contribute to a better assessment on our behalf in the global review, it is almost certain that an omission or a misinterpretation in the assessment and an effort of grading the effectiveness of individual national services is possible to have happened. But we would like to assure all our stakeholders and all our participants that this review is only a dynamic publication, a dynamic project of TIF that is meant to be annually revised and updated based on as new reliable information flows in either in published literature or becomes available to TIF, because the importance is to have nationwide data. Most of the data that we have used are either patients' responses, healthcare professionals, but from published literature based on hospital-based or on center-based results that included a sufficient number to allow extrapolation of the services. Now, we are all members of TIF, and I don't think that there is a need in this audience to describe the work of TIF, only to say that the vision of a small group of patients and parents back in the mid-1980s for sharing best practices and the successes these people have had in their own countries and share it across the world, promote research and promote equal access of patients wherever they may live to quality health, social and other care, mandated in fact the mission of TIF, which since 1986 has remained unchanged, and it's the support for the development of nationally coordinated and supported disease-specific programs in the context of patient-centered, universally coverage-based healthcare systems. It has been an honor to work with World Health Organization since 1996, but we have developed important and valuable collaborations with United Nations since 2017 in a consultative status. official partners with the European Commission since 2018, and participatory status of the Council of Europe since 2019. Today, nearly 200 national thalassemia associations constitute our membership, and amongst the most important activity on which our work is based is the educational program, for which I can safely state it has had a measurable impact on our patients across the world. The patient journey, the journey of a transfusion-dependent patient is certainly difficult and very challenging, considering that thalassemia is a complex disease with multiple needs. And we are all aware now that it starts from an accurate and timely diagnosis to the availability of expert monitoring and treatment, the integration of services, including multidisciplinary care and appropriate social care, lifelong healthcare professional and patient education, as well as, importantly, meaningful engagement of the patients and their families. But for the success of these services and the care provided to these patients, the absolute necessity is that these are part of a disease-specific, nationally controlled program in the context of a healthcare system that has the principle of universal coverage and patient-centeredness. So the two first questions that the patients and families have been asked in the preparation of this global review have been whether they consider whether government, science, research, healthcare professionals and patients and families were key players in addressing effectively this complex disease. And the second question was asking and seeking for their opinion as to what extent they thought each one of these stakeholders performed their role in effectively addressing the disease. And the answers were really the answers that are given finally after 547 pages of a global review. Patients and families strongly believe that patients, families, healthcare professionals, science and research, but very importantly, governments are all equal key players in effectively addressing the disease. But the scoring, the highest scoring was given to patients, families, and science and research. And in achieving their role, a lower score was received by the healthcare professionals for whom they believed have done, but they could have done better. But the lowest scoring in achieving their role has been received by the governments by almost over 70% of the responses of the patients. So this global review aims to answer, has science met patient expectations? And we have heard from Professor Porter, yes, we believe that science has met to a very great extent patients' expectations. But are all these advances reaching the patients? Have governments and national competent authorities played their part? Have patients and families contributed adequately to supporting improvements? Have health professionals facilitated really access and availability of optimal care to their patients? Well, all these are described in the global review. And what the global review grossly reveals is that the world is divided into privileged, less privileged, and largely deprived patients. The global review uncovers the huge inequities across the world and the tragic violation of human rights. So could these findings empower and sensitize involved stakeholders enough to take action? And is thalassemia and other hemoglobin disorders geographically confined? Should we focus on specific areas? Are there national registries that could allow us to make better assessments? And is prevention, for which there is ample evidence of how it can be effectively applied, implemented around the world? Dr. Michael Investignotis has the floor.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go a little bit through some of the basic chapters, and one of the most basic is epidemiology. I don't think that for this audience, I need to emphasize the importance of epidemiology. I have to say that when our TIF maintains its own database, what we have discovered through our database, through our collection of information, is that basically information is lacking, and what's worse, information is very often misleading. It's based on inadequate data, and it leads us into paths which are not necessarily accurate and academically acceptable. I have to also mention, however, that our job in the Thalassemia International Federation is not to explore an accurate academic issue, but to use our epidemiological database as a tool for governments, as a tool for our member associations, so that they can develop what Bernadette Model many years ago called service indicators. Through our database, we want to know how many carriers do we have, how many do we need to screen, how many prenatal diagnoses do we need to do, how many patients are there, and where are they located. Our database includes a lot of information. I can't describe it all of this in this brief report. It's all written down. The map here of beta thalassemia carriers is not very different to what is found in other databases. The same goes for our database for hemoglobin S and hemoglobin E. And of course, by the next edition, I hope that we will have information on non-deletional alpha and alpha 0 carriers, so that we can develop a database for that as well. One of the basic instruments Andrula has mentioned is the fact that registries of patients are needed. And if we really have the patient as the true center of our service development, we need to know how many patients we have. We need to know where they're located. We need to have some information about their needs, their treatment needs. What is their genotype and phenotype correlation? Not correlation, type. What are the research needs? And we can supplement a basic registry by an electronic medical record, which is an absolute necessity if we're going to give quality treatment. It has to be data collected from the day a patient is born to the 60, 70, 80 years he's going to live. TIF has searched for nationally based registries. In fact, we started our search from a paper by Nouri et al., which is quite recent, and they described 16 national registries. And we thought maybe we'll find more. In fact, we found one more, and there's only 17. So if we're thinking of 60 high prevalence countries, let alone the countries that are getting new migrations, you can imagine that these 17 are not covering our patient needs, and in fact are not giving us enough information about patients and their needs. Because of our deep interest in all this, TIF has developed its own electronic medical record from which registers can be derived. And of course, we hope that people will adopt it. And I've just put a screenshot of that particular electronic patient record there for you to see. Prevention. A lot is being said about prevention. I want to remind everybody that when way back, Professor Porter mentioned Silvestroni and Bianco in the 1940s and 50s. Yeah. When they initiated, and when Cyprus initiated, and when Greece initiated their prevention programs, it was really to save resources for the increasing needs of patients. As patients grow, more blood is required, more medication is required. So we needed to save resources for these patients. And this need was recognized by the World Health Organization, and resolutions were actually passed, which must be remembered. To perform or to adopt a policy for prevention, there are various strategies that need to be followed. We prefer that these strategies are nationally coordinated in order to be effective. They include issues like public awareness, like screening, like proper counseling, and offer of services to at-risk couples, which after informed consent, they might wish or not wish to adopt. In our database, what we see is that the majority of children born in the world are born in 89% of these births occur in countries that do not have effective programs for prevention. Those that are born in countries that do have effective programs are actually very few. I'm talking about really successful programs in about 4 or 5 countries, actually, not more than that. So this is a great need, an unmet need, if patients are going to survive.
Well, we now go on to the clinical services, and starting from the cornerstone of management, cornerstone number 1 is management of transfusion-dependent thalassemia, lifelong dependence on blood transfusion therapy. And it is very sad to report that despite the huge efforts made, particularly on this topic by World Health Organization and other international related bodies and regulatory authorities, but also after a lot of work done at the country level, because the chapter on transfusion therapy services in the global report is more than 60 pages, analyzing region by region and country by country within the region. And there has been indeed considerable work. But what it shows, based on the available information on the patient's responses, as well as some independent reports from healthcare professionals and competent authorities themselves, have shown that the level of appropriateness of transfusion therapy for these patients is still weak, and a lot more efforts are needed to focus on the adequacy, on the blood donor rate in each country, the interruption in blood transfusions, the burden on the patients of finding family and relative donors still suggests that non-remunerated blood donation needs to be focused in many countries of the world. The interruptions in blood transfusion, inappropriately processed blood, because the blood transfusion care in thalassemia is different. There are international guidelines on what blood adequate and safe is for thalassemia patients. The processing of the blood, the appropriate storage, the quality standards, and almost a complete absence in more than 95% of the countries, absence of any hemovigilance programs, which can report adverse reactions related or potentially related to transfusion, and hence the uptake of corrective measures. So there are important problems in terms of challenges in terms of adequacy and appropriate processing of blood in still many parts of the world in a great percentage of patient responses. Now, with regards to iron load monitoring and treatment, the other cornerstone of management, the authors and contributors of this chapter of the Global Review were faced with significant challenges because of the absence, as we repeatedly state in this conversation and discussion we are having, on the absence of nationwide data and information that would contribute to the better assessment of the availability and the effectiveness of iron load monitoring and treatment. because in every chapter there was an effort by the authors and contributors to actually assess and grade the countries with regards to the effectiveness of the particular programs that the review was focused on. Dr. Mike was referring to prevention. We have made an effort to grade the effectiveness of prevention programs based on what we feel the optimal elements included in the prevention would be, and in the same way as per the international guidelines. And in this chapter as well, we have tried to score and grade the countries according to the availability of iron load monitoring tools and according to the effectiveness of iron load monitoring and treatment. We have selected parameters such as the availability and frequency of use of monitoring tools such as serum iron, serum ferritin, and MRI, as well as the frequency based on recommendations of world experts in international guidelines, as well as the availability of the 3 authorized chelation drugs and the way these drugs are covered in terms of cost. Are they out of pocket? Is it contributory? Is it free of charge in a universal coverage healthcare system? And it did allow us to grade the availability and the level of utilization. It did not allow us, of course, to comment on the quality or calibration of the services, but only on their potential to actually contribute to the effectiveness of monitoring and treatment. And the other phase of the story was to try and grade the effectiveness of monitoring and chelation. And to this, we have compiled information on age distribution, average serum ferritin and MRI testing, liver iron and heart measurements, as well as the percentage of patients with cardiac complications and the percentage of patients with liver complications. And based on the scoring, we have attempted to grade the countries regarding the effectiveness, the potential effectiveness towards iron load monitoring and treatment. The maps, the 2 different maps there show that although there is a stated availability of iron load monitoring tools and availability of drugs in many countries around the world, yet the effectiveness of monitoring and treatment seems to be extremely confined. More than 60 countries of the world. These are based on color, of course, which I cannot describe in the interest of time, but more than 60 countries of the countries studied in this report, covering more than 75% of the global patient population, are stated availability, but their effectiveness is largely jeopardized. As far as multidisciplinary care is concerned and the existence of reference centers, this is much quicker for me to cover, although in the chapter of the global review, this is also very widely covered. But it is important to say that the value of the multidisciplinary care and the existence of reference was first seen in the southern Mediterranean countries and the Western world countries, where appropriate treatment contributed to the aging of the population and the realization and recognition of the need to use medical disciplines other than the treating physicians, so across medical and scientific disciplines. And gradually reference centers developed. And even in the last 15 years, the European Union has focused considerable attention and has reported considerable added value on the inclusion of multidisciplinary care, development of reference centers, and networking of these reference centers within the country and perhaps across regions to share practices and share knowledge and experience, something that is very much needed. Now, our results in this global review show that more than 95% of our patients are not receiving organized, structured, medical, disciplinary care, and a very big proportion of patients have actually never visited another medical discipline apart from the treating physician. And as far as reference centers are concerned, less than 4% of the patients are actually having access to reference centers. Okay. Sorry?
Okay.
We have left the social actually. We can go back to the social.
Sorry. Back to me. We need to have a look at why are these services, which, as you heard from Andula, are quite lacking. They're complex, yes, but they're also not being offered. One of the reasons was pure epidemiology. Another reason is because very few services actually sit down to estimate the cost, and through estimating the cost, begin to plan their services. So very briefly, the Thalassemia International Federation, in its passion, if you like, to get the ball rolling, to get people to actually start planning, we have developed, with the help of health economists, a cost awareness model. This is going to be available, it probably still is, it already is, available for any government, for any organization, any member of TIF, to actually cost what it takes for to do prevention, what it costs to treat patients in particular settings. The cost of treating in the United States is not the same as cost as it is in Europe or Asia. Therefore, each location has its own cost. Each location must be able to present for its health planners some kind of estimate of what is needed. And TIF, as I said, has developed a tool so that this can be done. We're talking about the burden of disease, understanding the burden of disease, and very often what really happens is that people reduce the burden of disease to a single number, days and years lost, etc., etc. This sometimes helps the prioritization of a particular condition, especially a congenital condition, to drop down the line because other things seem to be more important. To look at the true burden of disease, it's not just numbers. It's not just the number of patients. It's what they need. And we have to look at everything together. Do we have adequate and safe blood? Do we have monitoring tools? Are we able to give support, social and psychological? So really, the principle is that any civilized society must protect its most vulnerable members. Health is a fundamental human right. So why is it not met? Why is it not satisfied? Resource restrictions are extremely important, of course, but very often congenital conditions like thalassemia are not prioritized. It seems to be easier for people to tell the population about stopping smoking, not drinking too much alcohol, etc., etc. But when a child is born with a congenital abnormality that can survive, we very often think it's not a priority. And basically what's created is a competitive field so that advocacy is required to overcome these barriers. So we need to increase awareness. We need to increase understanding of congenital disorders at all levels, to the public, to the healthcare professionals, to the health authorities. We need to look at the social determinants of health, poverty, poor education, isolation, etc. Inequalities in service provision and health outcomes are actually avoidable. I cannot lessen the importance of lack of economic resources. In fact, when we look at when we look at our patients, where they live, what countries do they live in, we will see that according to the World Bank Income Group, most of them, the vast majority of them, live in in a very low income group country. So the provision of services is not available equally, and at the same time, quality standards to affected patients don't actually reach our patients that most need them. We need to look at outcomes. If we're not seriously looking at outcomes, we cannot seriously advocate. What you see there is something that already Professor Porter has already shown. These are two age distribution curves. One is a country which provides as much as it can to its patients. And you will see that the height, the peak age of patients is somewhere in the mid-40s, with a lot of patients living after the age of 40, and few patients because of prevention emerging. In the one below, you will see what the majority of countries can present. In other words, an age distribution of patients which is somewhere in their teens or early 20s. And this is what we're talking about. Quality of care is not provided for a host of reasons. And what we're ending up with is inequalities in service provision and poor health outcomes. And this is really what TIF was born to fight. So the true burden of disease is something that has to be advocated for, has to be prioritized. We have to be able to approach health authorities and bring them the facts. We have to let them know what the true burden of disease is. We have to know what collaborations are required. They need to partner with the public, with NGOs. And NGOs need to learn advocacy skills. We need to raise awareness, as I said before. So there is an awful lot of work that has to be done from TIF, from organizations, and from governments.
Just a couple of more slides, and we are towards the end. It has been very difficult to cover all the chapters, but this very important chapter was omitted in the series of slides that were shown. And the right to social care, social protection is very important. And social determinants of health are those conditions where the patients are born, live, educate, work. And these are the conditions that affect their lives and their well-being. And these are the conditions that lead to inequalities. And there has been so much focus on behalf of World Health Organization and other human rights instruments in declaring the right for protection and the human right for social care. However, we see that the social care provided to patients through our disease-specific survey needs considerable improvement. There's a huge percentage of patients that are unemployed or they're retired. They do not have access to any social care. They are expressing unhappiness and depression, isolation from family and friends, and these are the biggest percentages across the world. The benefits, the social benefits that the patients are receiving are in the context of the social security systems and in the disability legislations without any disease-specific reference. And that is giving and just to the social care of our patients. There needs to be improvement. Only a few countries have actually receiving disease-specific benefits. One of them is Greece, and very few, and Cyprus in more current years, Italy. In more recent years, there has been an inclusion of disease-specific reference in disability legislations, as for example in India, but there is still a lot of work needed to actually improve the social care and perhaps use a stratification considering the risk factors of each group of patients within the thalassemia population that run the risk of developing more risk of developing disability, particularly in countries where suboptimal care causes comorbidities and leads to various extents of disabilities. So social care also needs considerable attention, and social determinants of health are very important in addressing inequities across the world. Now, the last two slides are based on the recognition of the patient engagement. All of us here, and TIF itself, is fighting for the patient involvement and patient engagement, meaningful and productive. But that means that patients need to be knowledgeable, and that means governments and healthcare systems and competent authorities need to provide the basis and allow them to have to be engaged and acknowledge their role. We have tried in this chapter as well to grade the effectiveness of the various national thalassemia associations members of TIF based on certain criteria of activity. And what it shows is that a lot of work is needed to strengthen the work of National Thalassemia Association to have an independent voice and have a more meaningful engagement. But we need the close collaboration of the healthcare professionals and the competent authorities themselves. That's all for now, because the last slide is that we are calling for action. We're calling for action in order to safeguard the rights of individuals, in order to acknowledge the fact that their rights are largely and unacceptably violated. And we need to have implementation of well-monitored programs, but above all, political commitment, and of course, meaningful patient and healthcare professional participation. Science has performed its role. We have curative methods. We have innovative therapies. Have this been reaching our patient population? Well, from the results and the outcomes of this report, obviously not enough, or largely not. Thank you very much for your patience.
Dr. Androula and Dr. Michael, thank you very much indeed for walking us through and talking us through this very substantial and thorough study that is the Global Thalassemia Review, truly a document now of reference, and really a lot of food for thought in there, isn't there, going forward, a lot of action points, calls to action for all of those who are responding to and treating thalassemia going forward right around the world. Of course, when the right policies are in place, there are success stories when it comes to thalassemia. We've seen many of those happen right around the world. And we're going to show you some success stories now coming in from various different parts of the globe. We have stories from Greece, Cyprus, Italy, Iran, Lebanon, and also the UAE. So let's take a look now at some of those success stories.
May the 8th, International Thalassaemia Day, is a special day of celebration and assessment for those who suffer the disease. Today, on the occasion of this International Day, global initiatives, international awards, and actions are taking place, focusing towards the improvement and upgrading of life quality globally. As a beacon of hope, Greek scientific community with innovative treatments frames the therapeutic treatment of the disease with a unique objective, its definite eradication. Thalassemia sufferers, armed with discernible mental power, fight for their rights, study, work, fall in love, become parents, and believe in the humanitarian solidarity movement, which today, more than ever, grows with all those volunteers, blood donors, who by donating blood, they offer the gift of life. We, the Greek Ministry of Health and the Greek government, with Prime Minister Mr. Kyriakos Mitsotakis, support this fight of soul, endeavoring every possible effort. In Greece, approximately 4,000 patients have clinically symptomatic thalassemia, while most of them need the regular transfusion in order to survive. Today, thalassemia patients struggle with an additional and reasonable agony due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The main access to the best protect patients, aid to shield all care units, but mainly to promote individual responsibility. We, together, are winning the kind of life we deserve. We participate, we claim, we strive for the next day, for a new era.
It is my great pleasure to address the virtual event entitled Global Thalassaemia Report, the premiere, organized by the International Thalassemia Foundation in the context of the celebration of the World Thalassemia Day on May the 8th. This day aims at spreading knowledge about thalassemia and raise awareness about a disease that used to be universally fatal, but now has excellent prognosis due to medical, social and political collaboration. Cyprus has one of the highest prevalence of thalassemia in the world and has been the first country to introduce a successful population-wide prevention program based on premarital screening. I would like to take this opportunity and congratulate the Thalassemia International Federation for its tireless efforts to strengthen and educate the patients and for its actions to ensure the right to quality health service to the patients. Our joint efforts allow us to be proud for our exceptional contributions to public health. Global developments in the growth of new therapies for thalassemia impose a coordinated effort to train both patients and health professionals. The Ministry of Health stands by the actions taken at pan-European level to inform patients and the public. Our concern is the promotion of the treatment of thalassemia based on international protocols, but at the same time, we want to ensure that all means are provided for the prevention and radical cure of the disease. Towards this direction, we have established the NAT molecular method, which controls all blood collected and all blood products from communicable diseases, thus significantly increasing the quality and safety of blood. Our desire to support our fellow citizens with thalassemia is confirmed by our decision to turn the existing Thalassemia Center into an independent center exclusively for thalassemia issues, with the simultaneous establishment of a Thalassemia Support Center for psychological, social, and general support programs. The state has economically supported this significant action with a sponsorship of nearly €2 million. In addition, the Ministry of Health, with the valuable contribution of the National Thalassemia Commission, has already prepared the National Strategic Thalassemia. In conclusion, I would like to reiterate my personal and the Ministry's commitment to further support the patients and the goals of your federation, both national and international. Once again, I would like to thank you for your effort, and I have no doubt that the event you are organizing will be of great success, and you will have the opportunity to come across very interesting facts and news of thalassemia.
It is an honor to be invited to join and contribute to the Global Thalassemia Review. We live in a world of pronounced inequalities, further magnified nowadays by the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. And these inequalities affect all aspects of our lives, including healthcare provision. Thalassemia is, beyond a shadow of a doubt, no exception, as health and social care services necessary to patients for their survival and well-being are not available equally and under the same quality standards to individuals affected by this serious disorder, within and across countries of the world. It is a special privilege for me to welcome today the launching of the Global Thalassemia Review 2021, perhaps the most substantial work of the last few decades on thalassemia. which irrefutably reflects the precious knowledge gained by the Thalassemia International Federation on the current status of provided services for the disease globally. The United Arab Emirates have focused considerable efforts and have worked diligently for decades now to address and alleviate the suffering of patients with thalassemia. Such efforts have resulted in increased survival, improved quality of life, and satisfactory social integration of these patients across the Emirates. Additionally, the establishment of the first reference center for thalassemia in Dubai underscores the value of multidisciplinary care and the high level of expertise required to enhance the effectiveness of thalassemia management. The participation of Her Highness Sheikha bin Saif Al Nahyan in the board of directors of TIF and the establishment, under our leadership of the regional TIF office in Abu Dhabi, have further contributed to the regional and global efforts of the Federation for the benefit of the thalassemia community. There's still a lot to be done, but if we manage to join our forces and learn from each other's experiences, we can achieve so much more. Let us capitalize on this invaluable work offered to us by TIF and create a brighter future for our patients. I'd like to take a moment to wholeheartedly congratulate the World Health Organization for its work and guidance throughout the decades, and the Federation for its incessant efforts to ensure equal access to quality healthcare for every patient with thalassemia, with the active and meaningful engagement of patients themselves and their families. Thank you.
On this International Thalassemia Day 2021, I salute all patients, parents, NGOs, WHO, international organizations, doctors, and healthcare professionals working towards a better world for our dear persons with thalassemia. I also applaud the great work of the Thalassemia International Federation, who plays a major role in decreasing inequalities by supporting national associations, governments, empowering patients, and providing guidance, proper information, and updated guidelines. I have always believed and advocated for the basic right to all children, the right to better health. By sharing the same belief, we founded the Chronic Care Center 25 years ago to secure a safe haven for the protection of our children suffering from thalassemia, who were doomed with little hope to have proper treatment. This specialized center gave the chance to persons with this condition to have a decent life, access to medico-social care, better social integration, and to become productive members of the society. Today, we are proud to have the majority of them in good condition, educated, married, and having children. We have also contributed to building up healthier generations as we succeeded to a great extent in preventing the disease with the support of the Lebanese government. The journey was long, difficult, but fruitful. I challenge today again myself, TIF, government, global communities, and associations to work better and further to close the gap and decrease inequalities, especially in the difficult period. I wish you all the great thalassemia.
A thalassemia patient is entitled in right to envision a comfortable and clear future, and this would not happen without the help of governments. Fortunately, since previous years, patient, national organizations, and Thalassemia International Federation have attended to this important point, and they have tried to persuade governments to support thalassemics. However, we have been faced with ups and downs during this era and have not reached the optimum level. While extending my thanks to TIF and expressing my support for this altruistic institute hope that we could reduce the challenges thalassemics are experiencing and stay with them on their path to health. We consider solidarity, dignity, and equality for the advancement of health necessary to remove their challenges. We bear this heavy task so that on this planet we would be witness to the tranquility in lives of the great creatures God. Thank you so much.
In this Thalassemia Day, I would like to launch a positive message to all the thalassemia patients around the world. Together we can. Together, patients, physicians, stakeholders, we can fight against thalassemia in order to achieve better treatment, longer survival, and better quality of life. I am proud to say that although we still have a lot to do, some positive results have been achieved in Italy, thank you to our patient association and our great pediatrician who back to the late 70s, early 80s, started a proper transfusional regimen and adequate chelation treatment. This allowed to our patients to reach young adult life and to reach the present situation where they can face with their physician the possibility to have access to the novel treatment as, for example, bone marrow transplantation, gene therapy, and pharmacological molecules such as luspatercept or other molecules. So this is an important process who actually allow us to face the new scenario of thalassemia for improving survival, quality of life of our patients. And I want also to thank the present Patients Association and the present physician who dedicate along the last 10, 15 years a lot of effort in contributing, doing research, either in the clinical side as well as in developing the new molecules. So although we have a lot to do, but once again, I am proud to say that we achieve some positive results in Italy. And for this reason, we want to share with all the rest of the world, with all the other patients and physicians, our experience to do the best for any patients around the world. So with that, once again, together we can fight thalassemia.
Well, thank you very much indeed to everybody for their contributions there coming in right from around the world, including Italy that you were just hearing from there last, basically telling us that it is possible to prevent and manage thalassemia if the right policies are in place. I believe now we have another video to share on this. Well, while we're waiting for that video, maybe we can come back to it in a few moments. I just want to move on now to a part of this event which is really important, isn't it? Because to understand the real needs of patients going forward and to develop all those appropriate measures and responses to thalassemia right around the world is really important, isn't it, to understand from the patient's perspectives themselves, seeing thalassemia through the patient's eyes. And we're going to do exactly that now. We have three individuals that we're going to be talking to. One person from the UK, another from Iran, and somebody else also from Nepal. I'm sorry? Let's start with George Cancernotu, who's a TIF board member and assistant secretary, and he's from the UK. George, I'm going to hand the floor to you now. And George, if you could just take yourself off mute, please. Okay, George, we can't seem to hear you at the moment. Maybe we can go back to you in a few moments. We can get our technical colleague to help you with your microphone there. But in the meantime, let's go to...
I'm okay.
Ah, I can hear you now. Great. Hi, George. Welcome.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm sorry about these technical problems. Can you see my slides?
No, we can't. We can see you, but not your slides.
I'm trying. Is that okay?
No, here we go. Yeah, I think we can see your slides now, George. Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to enlarge it. Here we go. No?
If you go to slideshow and then that's it. Brilliant.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, George.
Right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is George Constantino, and I'm going to talk to you about the landmarks that I had in my life. And I will start with basically the parent's attitude towards thalassemia. I will try and indicate that family dynamics and reactions to a sick child established if a child could survive and become a contributing member of the society as a normal person. Don't worry, you're not well today, so don't go to school. Don't worry if your exams results are not good. And don't worry about girls and girlfriends, you know, your mom and dad are here. These are obviously not what should be happening to the patients from his parents. And my story is my final year at junior school. I was the best athlete in my school's sports day. But the day before the final competition, my teacher decided that I was a sick child and hence should not take part. Thank God my dad decided to visit the teacher and he ensured that I was back on the team. The doctor's attitude, well, this is the important one. The doctors that treat patients, especially chronic patients, must remember that the patients are not just hospital numbers. That's very vital. And come your clinic on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Don't worry about school. Come for your transfusion on Thursday, 11 a.m. please, and don't worry about work. This hospital doesn't have an MRI machine, so don't worry about T2 star. Well, those should not be happening either. And my story, when I came to the UK, my first doctor appointment was at Dr. Modell. Was with Dr. Modell. My mom was sitting very near the doctor and I was sitting behind her. Dr. Modell came round to me and asked me, what would I like to be when I was 20 years old? Well, that was the first time anybody indicated that I will be alive at 20. The United Kingdom was actually another one of my landmarks. In 1976, a group of patients and parents, with the help of Dr. Modell and other doctors, decided they had to improve patients' lives and thereby created the UK Thalassemia Society, which organized support programs for the patients to get together and talk about themselves, organized doctors' meetings and educate the doctors and scientists working on thalassemia, fundraising for research and development, the use of desferal as an inoculator for patients, the development of their then called Pi Dynamics portable pump, which everybody now is using, the development of endocrine treatment, the development of pre-mixed desferal pumps, what is known usually as Baxter pump, and the development of the first oral chelator, Kiferopron. This was the first time I realized I was not alone with thalassemia. Then the next landmark that was very fundamental in many people's lives was the creation of the International Thalassemia Federation. In 1985, a group of doctors around the world brought together numerous thalassemia organizations that were active across the globe in order to develop and collectively fight for a better treatment. The establishment of TIF is led to the understanding and the magnitude of the global thalassemia problem, which resulted in establishing a health professional's inadequate knowledge of the treatment of thalassemia, hence the global review that's just been published, confirming the inadequate knowledge and understanding and willingness of governments to accept that they had a thalassemia problem in their country. The development of a global treatment protocol, which hopefully many countries are now basing their treatment protocol, and arranging educational doctors and patients conferences. This is when I realized that thousands of patients with thalassemia will die without ever being diagnosed. The next real life-changing treatment developments that made a difference to my life was the development of the infusion pump, an additional needle into my body for 18 hours, which of course helped me survive and remove iron. The research and development of endocrinology treatment, which made people feel better and normal. The research of development of HCV treatment, which actually stopped liver failures for many patients. And the research and development of the first oral chelator, tiferapron, which reduced daily needles and kept us alive. And of course, finally, now, after so many years of hoping and dreaming, the research and development of gene therapy, which is the cure for thalassemia. It seems that I will not die at the age of 6, as I was previously told. Thank you.
George Cancernotu from the UK, thank you very much indeed for your personal testimony, your personal story there. Very insightful. Thank you very much indeed for your time and joining this virtual event today. We're going to hear from 2 other patients as well now. First of all, I'd like to go to Iran, Mahmoud Habdipour Deshel, who's a pharmacist. He's also from the Iranian Thalassemia Society. Mahmoud, welcome, and thank you very much indeed for sharing your story with us.
Thank you. Nice to be with you.
So the floor is yours.
Nice to be with you here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you very much. Nice to be with you in this high event. Born in the green zone of Iran, raised under the rain. I grown up in a family. How can I change this? Please change the slide. Okay, thank you very much. I raised in a compact family with 2 patients with thalassemia. One of them has epilepsy problem together with thalassemia. I mean resistant epilepsy sort. Next slide, please. During the war of Iran and Iraq, the shortage of blood is very common in the country. You know that very well. The majority of blood collected by the blood collection system sent to a war zone for injured soldiers in the place. But you couldn't understand the problem of 2 brothers with thalassemia in a family with own neg blood group. Next, please. To solve the problem of blood group, I had to use a bag, ice bag, I mean, to carry blood from the eastern part of the provinces Gilan into the capital city of provinces Gilan, Rash, to get washed, because at that time there was no washing system in the small towns such as Lahijan and other towns, and there was just a washing system of blood in the capital city of provinces. To find this role, we have another problem, because this role just distributed in Tehran, in the capital city of the country, and we should catch to this role in the capital city. And the first pump my brother received came from France, and it was a souvenir by my father's friend who lived in France. The next, please. The most horrible memory of mine was being alongside a cadaver in an emergency room. At that time, we got transfusion in emergency room of hospital, and one day an old man died next to me in the neighbor bed, and it takes 1 hour until the personnel of the hospital came and carried his cadaver into morgue. It was very horrible memory, but this memory ushered me into the importance of having separated and comprehensive center for thalassemia patient treatment. Next, please. Next. I worked my job as a pharmacist, and it was not easy in the situation of economy of Iran. But alongside of it, I started my others voluntary job. Please, next. To foster the quantity and quality of blood, I worked as a consultant to Iranian Blood Transfusion Organization, and I am proud of announcing that Iran is one of the best country in the safety and the quantity of blood among developing country. To solve the prevention of thalassemia problem, we should gather the data, real data and reliable data. You know that very well. It is not easy to find reliable data in the country located in developing area. And before I started collecting the data, the official had announced us there were just 20 or 13 new cases per year, but I proved that it is not true, and the number of new cases is higher than the estimation, but still Iran is one of the good and reliable and pioneer country in prevention of thalassemia among Islamic country. And one of a special problem in Iran was substandard drug. It is common in the developing country, country without organized pharmacopoeia. And I, as a pharmacist and thalassemic patient, I had to fight against this problem. And it was the most activity of mine during my incumbency in Iranian Thalassemia Society and during my life. Next, please. Training was another duty of mine. I'm honored to work with TIF a lot of times, as you can see. And in this picture, you can see the Deputy of Minister of Health of Iraq during my trip to Iraq, and having lectured there for thalassemia patients and physicians amid a terrorist attack. Next, please. Next, please. Okay. As a journalist, I think making aware of society, making aware the society about the real face of thalassemia is very important. In the developing country, the perspective of society about thalassemia is sick children. But during my life, I tried to change this perspective into a thalassemia person instead of thalassemia patients. Writing a scientific article about thalassemia and thalassemia prevention, quality of drug, and thalassemia patients' perspective has been another of my duty. Next, please.
Mahmoud, thank you very much indeed. We're just running out of time, so if you can just give your concluding comment, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed for your personal testimony there, your experiences and all the great work that you're doing in Iran around thalassemia. I want to move on now to Nepal. We're going to hear from Kamal Upreti, who's a patient advocate, who's also from the Nepal Thalassemia Society. Kamal, welcome to the event. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Kamal, we can't seem to hear you at the moment.
Hello.
Oh,
Hello.
hi, Kamal. Hi, we can hear you now. Welcome.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
So the floor is yours.
And that my presentation is that my experience about the thalassemic life is that I am presenting from here, International Thalassemia Day, May 8th, May 2021, a virtual high-level event on global thalassemia review. And my presentation, my experience title is about that. Respected President, Chief Guests, doctors, and globally participated, my dear friends. I'm Kamalnath Upreti from Nepal, a member of TIF Patients Advocacy Group and the Secretary of Nepal Thalassemia Society. I'm very happy and would like to give massive thanks to the TIF by getting an opportunity to express my personal experience of struggling through personal experience about thalassemia. Personal experience of thalassemia through these presentations. I think it will represent the struggling life of thalassemic due to the lack of medication opportunities and proper management in almost a low-level income and poor countries of the world. Stories within a story. We were 9 children. Our parents were born on interval of time from that 1959 to 1979. Then almost we were similar with me on facial appearance and physical structure. And while I was 6 years old, and my parents brought me Kanti Children Hospitals, but doctor could not diagnose my disease and the treatment. My health became worse day by day. And my parents' beliefs toward the Thami and Chankri, that means that superstition to some extent, and they believed toward the herbal medicinal practitioner. And boy, they suggested me to eat a herbal powder with a cow urine at empty stomach for air. It was too much bitter in the dust, and smelling cow urine created nausea and diarrhea. My health conditions became very poor. Legs, pale face, stomach were swollen. Head was big and gradually changed its shape and size. And ultimately, my parents brought me second time in hospital on 1993, and I was so serious and admitted for a month at hospitals. And ultimately, my Dr. Mark Zimmerman diagnosed me and examined me critically and diagnosed me as a beta thalassemia major patient. He has suggested to splenectomy to gain a good health and preventing from fast rejection of hemoglobin, and need to get a blood transfusion as per we necessities. And later on, that I have to get a continued follow-up to the doctors in Kathmandu, but nobody's advised me to give the transfusions and iron chelation, while my SBA level was 6 to 7 GDL. Thereafter that, later on, I met a hematologist to get a checkup, and he told me to start the iron chelation and blood transfusion. And for that purpose also, I have to travel 13 hours by bus on whole night in every 15 to 21st days for blood transfusions and other checkup toward the Kathmandu. I have kept my privacy of illness and the treatment from my friends, relatives, and society. If it would be known to them, they would ignore and would change their attitude and behavior towards me. And due to lack of the proper treatment and management of disease on my puberty, I have lost my physical growth and beauty. So I seems unusual in face and structure than average people. It is very painful to me. And one day I have been rejected from interview and the job due to my physical appearance. It was not I was not handsome to them. I never forgot such pinch behaviors of gentlemen and deprivation from job opportunity. And later on, that second Pan-Asian Conference of TIF on haemoglobinopathy in 2020 in Thailand, Bangkok was a milestone in my life. TIF has gave me an opportunity of participation and my expression on patient floor, where I saw the life and hope of my many thalassemic friends. I was inspired, meeting with them, gained knowledge about the survival with thalassemia and longevity of life. And with the courage and inspiration of TIF, I have been working in the field of Nepal thalassemia voluntarily since 14 years. And awarding them and spreading the knowledge whatever I have gained. I wish no one thalassemic should have to lose their good health and golden life hereafter due to improper diagnosis, treatment, and complication caused by its ill management. And change size, please. Yes, how we are living, that I am living with this bone health. This is a DEXA scan of my body and the condition of my bone health due to improper management of a thalassemia on my childhood. And another one is that losing a bone health, lack of timely management of thalassemia. This is also that I am suffering nowadays in these situations. And another one is that where is child right for healthy life? This one is 13 years old child from rural village. He is not getting the proper treatment, and neither blood transfusion nor iron chelation, and so that he have to accept this condition, which is really pathetic and that really poor. And next one, please. And what
Kamal,
we are
if you can just start concluding. Yeah, we just got about 30 more seconds, if that's okay.
Okay. And this is one picture I'm doing on behalf of thalassemia to gain some betterment during meanwhile the time of the COVID crisis. And next one, please, voice. Like in my country, I think thalassemia is more or less prevalent in the countries of the world with low income, full of poverty and illiteracy, and a very low level of awareness regarding disease. Treating heart, kidney, and stomach disease, including other health-related problems, or facilitating treatment thereof, and achieving the success to that effect hardly represent the overall development of health sector. Diagnosing genetic blood disorders and providing easy and accessible health services to such patients must be given to a top priority and considered a significant health achievement. Why does not the government or the state want to invest identifying and treating such problems? Why are not the related rules and regulations made? Has the government been so insensitive that it lacks empathy to feel the pain of the patient of such genetic disorders are undergoing? Or does the government think it unproductive to invest in such area? Is the healthy population not an asset of the country? The counties the concerned should look at the huge investment or initiative made by the global community or nation selflessly for the sake of humanity in order to save the people's life, and internalize that if such health problems are not addressed before it is too late, it will likely lead to a catastrophic situation beyond our control.
Kamal, we have to leave it there. Great. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and stay safe.
Thank you very much, Kamal Uberti, joining us from Nepal. They're giving us some very important questions, wasn't he, towards the end of that presentation? Some very important questions going forward as we think about the responses and the treatments of thalassemia around the world. So the Thalassemia Global Review, as we know, is a very important document. We've been talking about that during this session so far. And it's the first attempt, really, of TIF to bring together all the available data that's out there on thalassemia. So now this document has been put together. What does it actually mean? How can it make a difference? How can it be used? And what is the added value of the Global Thalassemia Review? We're going to hear from a range of speakers now, giving their perspectives on all of those questions. And I encourage all of you, please, to stick to the allotted time that you have been given to give your perspectives. And we're going to start with Dr. Asmus Hammerich, who's the Director of Non-Communicable Diseases and Mental Health at the WHO Eastern Mediterranean Office. So Dr. Hammerich, let's take your perspective on this Global Thalassemia Review, please.
Thank you very much indeed. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to be invited today. And of course, we're looking back at a fair number of years of collaborating with TIF here in the region and beyond. And haemoglobinopathies, including thalassemia, are of course considered an important health issue in the Eastern Mediterranean region, which really spreads beyond the Eastern Mediterranean, as many as you know, between Morocco and Afghanistan or Pakistan. And where cultural practices differ a lot, but practices like consanguineous marriage are still contributing to a high prevalence of congenital and genetic disorders in some countries. With the COVID-19 pandemic, health systems have also faced new challenges, exposing the weaknesses of our health services overall, whilst highlighting the importance of investing in health for the sake of the whole society, the right of the individual, through effective multidisciplinary collaboration and action, as was mentioned many times today in this very interesting event. This is particularly true, I believe, for people living with hemoglobin disorders and other relatively rare diseases who need to be considered a high priority in a high-risk population, certainly in our countries. To leave no one behind, which is one of those mantras of the United Nations today, current efforts across the region to expand universal health coverage, including new interventions as part of national benefit packages with proper financial protection, certainly offer an opportunity for all non-communicable diseases, including haemoglobinopathies, to be better integrated into national health agendas. Hemoglobin disorders require a systematic approach for the health system, as was illustrated just now, to deliver on a range of preventive and curative interventions, including genetic counseling, chelation therapy, or stem cell transplantation. Now, this is important for us now. From the public health point of view, evidence suggests that national programs are often successful where the following interventions are combined. One, public awareness raising and education to improve so-called genetic literacy and address common misconceptions. Two, adequate dialogue with legal, cultural, and religious leaders in order to establish an acceptability of policies. Three, availability of population screening programs with the provision of genetic counseling for individuals and so-called at-risk couples, including at the primary healthcare level. And four, finally, the availability of choices for prevention, including prenatal diagnosis and implantation, genetic diagnosis linked with legal therapeutic abortion. I think this is critical from our side, and that has been our observation over time, that countries who were able to have those elements together were making progress. And it's worth noting that there are some countries in our region that led the way in the field of thalassemia. For example, Iran, present today, Lebanon, and the United Arab Emirates. But others are also making important steps in the right direction with some more support, including Egypt, Jordan, Morocco. So the Global Thalassemia Review will certainly contribute to inform those national dialogues that we need, and the need to better include hemoglobin disorders as part of the universal health coverage and ultimately person-centered care and national efforts that you were referring to. It will serve as a basis to evaluate the implementation of WHO's or TIF's recommendations in countries to address any unmet needs. And in the WHO Eastern Mediterranean region, in our office here in Cairo, we have a vision called Health for All by All that outlines how we can work together within the health sector and beyond to ensure that our populations have access to essential health services whilst avoiding human and financial suffering, drawing on the human rights perspective that was mentioned many times today. So finally, let me, on behalf of my regional director, Dr. Ahmed Al-Mandari, express my appreciation and thanks to the TIF and their close and productive collaboration with WHO over the years in our countries here in EMRO, but also globally. And I'm very happy that Dr. Tedros was with us in a message this morning. But especially also, I would like to thank TIF for being so dedicated to working at the grassroots level to educate and empower patients and providers and to advocate for patients' rights, whilst at the same time highlighting existing inequalities in healthcare for people living with thalassemia and other haemoglobinopathies. Thank you very much indeed.
Dr. Hammerich, thank you very much indeed for joining us in this very important event today and your perspectives looking forward. Please, everyone, try to keep to time as much as possible. We've got so many people to hear from, so many fascinating insights to get through, so please stick to your allotted time. I'd like to go next to Professor Ali Tahir, who's a professor of medicine, hematology and oncology, and he's from the American University of Beirut. Hello to you, Professor.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, friends, and esteemed guests, as a long collaborator of TIF and after witnessing the continuous success and growth of TIF over the past few years, I'm very pleased to be part of the newest initiative organized by the TIF in the context of the International Thalassemia Day. The Global Thalassemia Report will be the first of its kind in bringing together a huge volume of information, as Andrulla and Michael said, and evidence-based data on thalassemia from all over the world, from epidemiology, diagnosis, complications, clinical management, psychological aspects, as well as the most important, quality of life and cost effectiveness. This program will indeed act as a reference for the national governments, the academic and scientific committees, and the different thalassemia societies, and patient support groups and programs all around the world. The globe. We hope that the Global Thalassemia Report will connect patients' families and their healthcare professionals from all over the world and will inspire many to invest and further conduct research in thalassemia to ensure equal access to quality healthcare for every patient with thalassemia in the line of TIF mission and vision. At the end, a special thanks to Mr. Panos Inglesias, who I highly admire for his ability to transform a heartbreaking story at a personal level and form it to raise the voice, and from it to raise the voice of thalassemia and thalassemia community and transform thalassemia care. None of this would have been possible if it weren't for his leadership and wisdom. Success is indeed possible, and I hope that this initiative will lead to more success stories, and hopefully we will all witness them. Thank you.
Professor Ali Tahir from the American University of Beirut, thank you very much indeed for your important words there. We're now going to go to Dr. Victor Boulyjenkov, who's a former head of human genetics program at the World Health Organization, the WHO. Doctor, let's join you now for your perspective. Oh, we can't hear you. If you just take yourself off mute. No, we can't hear you, unfortunately, Doctor. I'll tell you what, while we're sorting out your technical situation, we do have a video that we're going to play to all of you. Some words from patients and their families about the World Thalassemia Day that's coming up. And Dr. Boulyjenkov, we will come back to you after this video, but let's have a look at this first.
Around 80% of patients with thalassemia live in low and middle income countries.
Meno del 20% dei pazienti con beta-talassemia nel mondo riceve cure adeguate, con oltre l'80% che vive nei paesi in via di sviluppo.
सुरक्षित ब्लड का उपलब्ध होना, आवश्यकता अनुसार उसका सभी को मिलना, जो ब्लड दिया जा रहा है उसका नेट और बाकी सभी जांच करके देना, दुनिया के कई देशों में अभी भी ये काफी बड़ी चुनौती है.
ونظرا لانخفاض مستوى الرعاية الصحية في معظم الدول لا يتعدى عمر مرضى الثلاثيميا 20 عاما.
Τα δικαιώματά μας ως ασθενείς για ίση πρόσβαση στην υγειονομική περίθαλψη παραβιάζονται παρά τη διακήρυξη των ανθρωπίνων δικαιωμάτων των Ηνωμένων Εθνών.
The International Thalassemia Day is an opportunity to remember all those whom we have lost and to join forces more united than ever to fight for our rights and for a better future.
Saya mendukung Hari Thalassemia Internasional, menghormati teman-teman yang sudah tidak bersama kita lagi.
Hayatta kalabilmek ve daha kaliteli bir tedavi için verilen mücadeleye katılarak Uluslararası Thalassemia Günü'nü destekliyorum.
Ich unterstütze den Internationalen Thalassemia-Tag, um meinen Respekt gegenüber den Eltern zu zeigen, die selbstlos für ein besseres Schicksal ihrer Kinder kämpfen.
我支持國際地中海貧血日，並且衷心感謝所有奉獻生命給我們的捐血人士。多謝。
Apoio o Dia Internacional da Thalassémia e eu aproveito a ocasião para sensibilizar todos os responsáveis a nível regional, nacional e internacional sobre a temática da thalassémia e das suas necessidades não atendidas.
از تلاش انجام گرفتن روز جهانی تالاسمی حمایت می‌کنیم. با علم برای راه طولانی در پیش خواهیم داشت و در این مسیر دوستان خوبی در تولید کنندگان کالاهای سلامتی و گروه پزشکی ما را همراهی خواهند کرد.
Kami mempunyai hak untuk kesehatan.
Nous avons droit à la vie.
আমরা সবাই থ্যালাসেমিয়া যোদ্ধা।
Todos somos héroes de la thalassemia.
हम सब थैलेसेमिक हीरो हैं।
We are all Thalassemia heroes.
The International Thalassemia Day and what it means to so many different people right around the world right now. Let's try and go back to Dr. Boulyjenkov. Can you hear me? And let's see if we can hear you this time for your perspectives on this Global Thalassemia Review. Unfortunately, we can't hear you still. Let's go to our next guest, and we have Victor Boulyjenkov, who's a professor of pediatrics at the Department of Pediatrics and Thalassemia Center at the Sri Raj Hospital in Bangkok in Thailand. Veep, hello to you, and thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Yes, thank you very, very much. And I hope you can hear me.
I can, yes.
Yeah, perfect. It is my great pleasure to be part of this very, very important program started by the WHO and Thalassemia International Federation. So I would representing the country from Asia, especially those in the Southeast Asia, which is that we have such a very high prevalence of thalassemia, both beta thalassemia and alpha thalassemia. I think the initiative for the Global Thalassemia Review is very important because it is the very right issue that affecting globally, not only in Asia, but in Mediterranean country, in Middle East, and also in North America. And when the people start to migrating, I think this is truly a global issue that should get attention by WHO and all the health policy makers. Besides, the right issue is also very right timing. Because at present, the issue related to thalassemia, we are at the junction between the advance in medical science on treating the patient with thalassemia. We have gene therapy, we have new treatment, including the ineffective erythropoietic drug. We have the stem cell transplantation, pre-implantation genetic testing. However, we still have a big gap that a lot of people still have limited accessibility and availability to the basic cornerstone of the thalassemia treatment, such as blood transfusion and iron chelation therapy. And these gaps seem to be bigger in the lower or middle income countries, such as a lot of countries in Asia, where we have such a very high prevalence of thalassemia. And on top of that, we are in the pandemic of the SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19, which is magnifying the problem with the basic care to thalassemia patients. The patient has a shortage of blood transfusion. The patient cannot come to the hospital for the regular care. The patient has limited access to the chelation. And because of the social distance, the lockdown, we have to delay our blood transfusion schedule, which is we not intentionally want to do that. But because of the program, because of the country policy, so our thalassemia patients, not only in my country, Thailand, but also all of the Asian countries are suffering now because of this. So that's why we need to have a right team. And I think a collaboration between WHO and TIF will move this issue forward. And I would like to leave with the very important mechanism that we can help to improve the situation for patients with thalassemia is the education, education, and education. We need to educate the health policy maker in globally, not one single country, but in all of the countries that have affected by thalassemia patients. They need to understand the need of our patients. They need to understand the related issue related to their health. We need to educate all the patients and parents, and we have to help to empower them to ask for their right, to ask for their support from the society. And last but not least, we need to help educate healthcare practitioners like myself. We need to educate general practitioners. We need to educate hematologists worldwide to understand the care of thalassemia. And with the help of the society, healthcare practitioner, patient, parent support group, and also the government, we can make this global thalassemia review become a reality. Thank you very much.
Veep in Bangkok in Thailand, thank you very much indeed for your words there. We're going to go to India now, to Shobha Tuli, who's the TIF Vice President of Thalassemics in India. Shobha, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Just give us your thoughts as this review is now coming to fruition.
Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you, yeah.
So good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Greetings from India. I'm really privileged to be a part of this important meeting. This International Thalassemia Day 2021, the united voices together as one, highlighting the huge and heterogeneous health inequalities faced by patients with thalassemia and their families globally, are very clear and louder than ever before. Right to health, right to live. Global Thalassemia Review 2021 is a dynamic piece of work by TIF in association with WHO. It would be considered as another milestone in the history of thalassemia, containing information about essential services, patients' perspective, and a lot more, aiming to raise awareness amongst decision-making bodies and global thalassemia community. As we all know, that thalassemia is no more considered as a fetal disease, but a preventable and manageable blood disorder. Since 1986, TIF has been working tirelessly across the world, sharing its accumulated knowledge, encouraging patients, parents, and influencing government authorities. Thalassemia International Federation's significant contribution in the field of thalassemia and its successful journey could be judged by looking at patients who are no more considered as victims, but equal partners in decision-making. To further promote healthcare services in countries where numbers are huge and thalassemia is not officially recognized as priority in public health, there is a need to develop tailor-made programs as per countries' specific social, economic, cultural needs. This Thalassemia Global Review document of 500 plus pages is going to help non-governmental organizations, especially working in Asian countries, to strengthen their work for eliminating health inequalities, one country, one line of treatment for all, promoting community education. India is having 30 to 40 million carriers. 10,000 to 12,000 infants are born every year with thalassemia major. A lot of work is being done by NHM, Union Health Ministry, and state governments. Thalassemia NGOs' contribution to their community and health services is commendable, which has been only possible with the help of TIF and governmental authorities. Let's all work as one united voice to bridge the gaps. Thank you very much indeed.
Very good concluding thoughts there. Shobha Tuli from India, thank you very much indeed. Let's go to Riyadh Aubard, who's the TIF Treasurer at the Thalassemia Foundation of Canada. The floor is yours now.
Thank you so much, Damon, and thanks to the organizers of this event. It's really fabulous to have such a gathering of experts. I want to start by first saying that we have been very fortunate and we have been lucky to have the medical and scientific innovations that have advanced both the life expectancy and quality of life for thalassemia patients across the globe. TIF and its member National Thalassemia Associations worldwide has dedicated exceptional efforts to help improve access to these new medical and scientific innovations to benefit thalassemia patients, and have brought these innovations to the attention of health authorities worldwide. And first and foremost, the global thalassemia networks that are created by TIF are really a huge support, and the member organizations that has worked hard on this. So I want to thank the industry partners, and not to forget that we owe a lot of these successes to the dedicated doctors who are pioneers and experts on leading these innovations and research and caring for the patients, and they have tremendously improved patient outcomes. Now, unfortunately, in many developing countries, we still see that the thalassemia incidents are devastating numbers, and the quality of life and patient care remains at minimal. Also, in many Western countries where we feel these countries are very proud of their own universal healthcare systems, still do not deliver multidisciplinary holistic care to a large portion of thalassemia patients. And patients must have equitable, sustainable access to current and new promising therapies, which are now coming on the horizon. It is the first time that there are disease enhancement therapies and curative gene therapies and gene editing therapies. These medications are facing uncertainties with respect to coverage funding. I applaud TIF on this initiative, and I believe that the Global Thalassemia report presented today, bringing together collaboration of efforts among TIF, WHO, a high level of expertise on thalassemia, as well as strong patient advocates, is an important step towards finding effective solutions for the challenges faced globally by thalassemia and other haemoglobinopathy patients. We all appreciate that key decision makers and health authorities have a very tough task to provide optimal care and address the unmet needs for patients. It would be more difficult now for them to deny the facts presented today and to come back with counter arguments on all aspects such as epidemiology, prevention, clinical management, blood safety, cost of illness, and social health protection. Thank you very much.
Riyadh Aubard from the Thalassemia Foundation of Canada, thank you very much indeed for your words there. Let's now hear from Bob Ficara, who's a TIF board member and past president of Cooley's Anemia Foundation in the USA. Bob, over to you.
Good morning, everyone.
Hello.
Can you?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Good. The TIF Federation has been in existence for 35 years and has outreach to 62 countries with delegation visits and an outpouring of information on every possible topic of thalassemia. The Federation has brought together patients from around the world to share their questions, their concerns, and their experiences. Also, the establishment of national parent-patient associations in these countries has helped to solidify the parent and patients to secure the proper treatment and care for from their health authorities. This is a major step in every country, having a strong parent-patient association. TIF has provided the information on every aspect of thalassemia: treatment, medications, nutrition, transplantation, chelation, and gene therapy. The outpouring of information has educated the parents and patients and health authorities to demand the proper treatment for our thalassemics. Each country faces its own challenge, but with the knowledge and dedication and unity, the individual countries have the ability to secure the best social protection that they should seek. In the USA, we are privileged to have a wonderful institution, but also a lack of public knowledge, as thalassemia is a very small percentage of our population. The Cooley's Anemia Foundation has worked diligently to provide the best knowledge to our parents and patients, while funding research for treatment and a cure. This year, over $400,000. We also are sponsoring patient scholarships for education. We are funding traveling for patients to go to TIF conferences also. Together with TIF and the medical community, Thalassaemia has done much to educate our parents and patients, especially the new arrivals from the East and Far East to our country. Our demographics have changed. In the early years, we were mostly Italian and Greeks. Today, our new population of thalassemics is the Far East and East. So we are proud to be a member of TIF, and we will continue to support it. And we want to thank Panos and Andrea and the staff for outstanding work that they have produced year after year after year. Thank you so much.
Well, Fikara from the US, thank you very much indeed for your words of support there, and thank you very much indeed for speaking to us on this very important day for thalassemia. Now we're going to hear from Eleni Michailaki, who's a TIF board member from the Greek Thalassemia Federation. Hello to you, Eleni.
From Greece.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, yeah.
Okay. The Greek Thalassemia community since 1974, through its associations in the beginning and continuing through its federation, struggled to promote specialized treatment for thalassemics based on every patient's individual needs according to the international standards and protocols. The Greek Thalassemia Federation's main purpose is the improvement of the provided health care to patients, the increase of job opportunities, and also their social integration, setting aside any barriers. Greece was one of the first countries that united and established the International Thalassemia Federation so that an organization would exist that would promote thalassemia patients' rights across the world. TIF has served in the best possible way this initial purpose until today, creating positions in favor of the thalassemics, inventing useful tools for their claims and promoting the improvement of the treating conditions in many countries. Such a valuable tool for the international thalassemia community is the Global Thalassemia Review 2021, as it will help in the empowerment and the strengthening of the patient's voice in every country. TIF has created a means to promote an updating of the patients that will enhance knowledge on a national level, the experience in order to face the issues that concern the thalassemia patients. And this is a very good opportunity to exchange good practices so that the governments will be pressured into taking the necessary measures. The Greeks have formed a complete system to treat this condition using their patients' coordination and struggle, and they have placed this work on the global map of thalassemia. I believe that so many people will receive a benefit from this useful exchange of information that concerns the various aspects of the condition, of this condition. What is always guiding us and moves us ahead is the thought that the life of every single thalassemic, wherever he is invaluable. Thank you.
Eleni Michailaki from the Greek Thalassemia Federation, thank you very much indeed for your words as well. Now, third time lucky, I hope. We're going to go back to Dr. Victor Boulyjenkov, the former head of Human Genetics Program at the World Health Organization. I had a few audio problems a bit earlier on, but I think maybe those audio problems have been fixed now. Just take yourself off of mute on your mobile phone, I think, Dr. Boulyjenkov. Can you hear me okay?
Do you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Well,
nice to hear your voice.
Well, thank you very, very much. I'm so sorry for the delay. Okay, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to participate in this important event. As you know, WHO adopted several resolutions on thalassemia and sickle cell anemia and urged member states to develop comprehensive national programs for the control of these diseases, including community education and training personnel. It means that WHO raised the hemoglobin disorders to the high international level, establishing the diseases as priority on the WHO health agenda. At the same time, the available updated epidemiological data clearly demonstrate that the magnitude of the problem is obviously under understanding worldwide. To this end, the present TIF global review seems to be very important and timely done. You are also aware that hemoglobin disorders belong to the genetic diseases of the NCD area, requiring specific strategies and interventions based on the advanced research. Genetic technologies have significant potential for health applications, including an early diagnosis, newborn screening, genetic predisposition to complex NCD diseases, determination of individual responses to drugs, and so on. I believe if WHO wants to further develop genetic approaches to the control of thalassemia and NCDs, the Human Genetics Program within headquarter NMH cluster could be restored and reinforced, providing an appropriate support with countries in their activities for health improvement via genetics. Finally, I should say that it was my privilege and honor to work together with TIF, especially and effectively headed by Mr. Panos Anglezos and Dr. Androula Eleftheroou over many years. Thank you very much.
Dr. Boulyjenkov, thank you very much indeed for your contribution today. Now, just before we hear some concluding remarks for this event, I'd like to open up the floor now to a few other of our esteemed guests that are joining us for this special event today. And I'd like to go to India and speak to Vinita Shrivastava, who's the Indian government representative joining us today. Hello to you, and just tell us your perspectives today as this review is published.
I think she has left.
Okay, we can't hear Vinita. We also have the health ministers and representatives from Mauritius and the Maldives joining us on this event. Thank you very much indeed to both countries for your presence today. I'd like to invite the representative from Mauritius, if you're still here with us. Okay, maybe they're not with us, or the Maldives, if you're with us, the representative, if you have anything to say, the floor is yours now.
Yes.
Hello, welcome.
Yeah, greeting from Maldives, and wish everyone the best on the occasion of the International Thalassemia Day 2021. And I believe this review will give us as well a perspective on the inequality in the treatment throughout the globe, and also give us some lights into the inequalities that might be in our country as well, and strengthen our programs to strengthen the prevention as well as the treatment. And we are very happy to be part of this event, and thank you, TIF, for inviting us to be part of this event. Thank you.
A great pleasure, and thank you very much indeed again for attending, and thank you very much indeed for your words there. Thank you for joining us. So as we bring this event to a close, let's get some concluding remarks. I'd like to go back to Dr. Androula, who's obviously one of the key people behind this global review that is being published. So Dr. Androula, back to you for some final remarks.
Well, thank you very much, Damon, but let me thank everyone for their patience in holding up with us, and I can assure you concluding remarks would be really, really short. Before that, Mr. Panos Anglezos, the President, would like to say a few words, and then a few words from me in concluding.
Okay, we have come to, we have come to the end of the meeting, and I would like to express our sincere thanks to the Director General of WHO for being with us and for his message, and also the ministers that have been with us. I'd like also to thank you very much the doctors that have been with us, and especially those that delivered a speech or contributed in a way to the success of this meeting. Thanks to everybody being with us here or listening to us from a distance. I'd like to thank them very much, and I hope that this meeting has benefited everybody a lot. Last but not least, I'd like to thank the moderator, Mr. Davan, for his excellent work. He handled things very, very special, in a very special way, and I thank him very much. Thanks, everybody, and I leave the floor to Abdullah for her comments on the procedures.
Okay, Roya, so my turn as well to thank each and every one of you. It was my real pleasure to work with TIF for so many decades, since 1993 on a voluntary, and since 2008 in a permanent post. It has been my pleasure to meet and work with past and current board members, and in particular in close interaction with President Mr. Tedros Ghebreyesus. A real pleasure and an honor to have met key scientists and medical specialists across the world. Some of them were here with us today. It has been my privilege to work with the patients and families across the world. Having listened to the patient stories today with Michael, it brought us back to memories of working at the country level. We are also very honored to have representatives of ministries of health and ministers of health giving their message or participating. I would like to thank the members of the staff of Thalassemia International Federation, whom I have no words to thank enough for their dedication, their passion in providing reliable and quality work to every work and every project that TIF is undertaking. And I would like to finish up with a few realities that about 7% of the global population carries an abnormal haemoglobinopathy gene. More than 80% of the patients with thalassemia are living in the low and low-medium income countries of the world. In the majority of the countries where thalassemia exists, the patients do not reach or surpass the age of 20 years. Less than 5% of patients across the world have access to multidisciplinary care and to reference center. Less than 20% of patients with thalassemia globally receive appropriate and timely, as recommended in international guidelines, blood transfusion and iron chelation therapy. National prevention programs are largely absent or largely ineffective in the greatest majority of the country. And an estimated 60% of the patients in low and middle income countries have restricted disease-specific knowledge, limiting their equal and meaningful engagement at decision-making levels. So voluntary non-remunerated blood donations must be significantly strengthened to address the essential needs of patients with transfusion-dependent thalassemia, which has been the focus of this Global Review 2021, and who require certainly uninterrupted life-saving blood in order to survive. So in conclusion, and putting together all the parameters on a very busy slide, which in the interest of time, I cannot even try to explain, all it shows is that we have collected the effectiveness of the prevention program in more than 50 countries of the world and placed on this table, as well as the grading of the different, of the effectiveness of the different clinical services provided across the country. We have added onto that table important information like the HDI and the income level of each country, as well as their contribution of the budget on health services. We have added the anticipated number of births and the infant mortality in less than 5 years mortality rate of these countries and have made certain comparisons. But the conclusion, interpreting this slide, which is the conclusion of all the chapters together, is that the unmet needs are many, multiple, and universal across the globe. Huge inequalities are prominent within and across the countries and regions. And we are calling for action and synergies, as very well mentioned also by the Director General, Dr. Tedros of the World Health Organization. We need to strengthen the collaboration of member states with the World Health Organization. Member states that have signed the resolutions, the many and multiple resolutions of World Health Organization, both with regards to disease-specific, but also disease-related public health, human rights, inequalities, blood transfusion services safety, patient safety, numerous number of programs and recommendations by World Health Organization have been signed by member states, and we need to strengthen that collaboration of member states so that the work of World Health Organization for which they have signed can start to be implemented effectively towards the towards addressing appropriately the prevention and management of hemoglobin disorders. Strengthening the collaboration of member states with TIF as well, and its members, which are national thalassemia associations, and very importantly with the global healthcare professionals. At the center of every thought and action should be, and hopefully is, the patient and the benefit towards the patient. There is ample documented knowledge and best practices available on the prevention and management of hemoglobin disorders. There is no excuse of lack of knowledge of how to effectively prevent and appropriately manage this disease. And improving the health and survival, quality of life and social inclusion of every citizen is the obligation and responsibility of every government. So, in addition, by improving services for hemoglobin disorders, member states can benefit because they can utilize the improvements in terms of public health and social services infrastructure, and acknowledging that hemoglobin disorders constitute a blueprint for the control and management of other genetic rare diseases and anemias, that brings us to the point that apart from being a responsibility of the government to focus on the health, survival, and social inclusion of the patients, it can also benefit from the infrastructures of the services that are related to effectively addressing the needs of prevention and management of thalassemia. So thank you very much for your patience, and we call to action and synergies, and Thalassemia International Federation will be in a position to compile a special document as a call to action in collaboration with World Health Organization, and distribute appropriately and accordingly the Global Review 2021. We need your support in providing data and information so that we can continually update and upgrade this information, which will be the right hand and a very important tool for competent health authorities to plan and tailor their services towards these patients. From me, thank you very much for the contribution of everyone in this event. And Damon, the floor to you.
Thank you, Dr. Andrula, for your concluding remarks there. Also, thank you very much indeed to Panos Englezos. We can also get some concluding remarks now from our esteemed guest in India, our Indian government representative, Anita Shristava. We can join you in India now, I believe. Just tell us as we conclude this event, you know, the importance of this review and the International Thalassemia Day for you. Oh, we can't hear you. If you just take yourself off mute.
Yeah, thank you so much. It is indeed pleasure to join you all in this meeting. And regarding India, as you understand, we are going through a very critical time during this pandemic COVID-19. So the concern is that India, which is a big country, has 36 states across the country, and India has taken up this lead of haemoglobinopathies as a totally a new intervention in the health systems. And if we recall, while I was going through the Andrula's presentation about the strategies, which was very empowering and good to hear. So India has come up with those strategies about the haemoglobinopathies book, which has come up as a control and management of haemoglobinopathies. With the management, if you talk about, we have also initiated the free blood schemes for the patients who are coming to the government facilities, and other required multidisciplinary things are being taken care in India for the patients which are suffering from haemoglobinopathies and hemophilia. We have developed some of the ICHS centers, that is Integrated Center for Haemoglobinopathies and Hemophilia, across the country, which is very helpful for the patients. And I hope you have seen that e-Rakt Kosh, which is you can place your request in the e-Rakt Kosh for blood services as well for other management purposes. For prevention also, I'm thankful to Mrs. Shobha Tuli and Andrula because they have been very supportive for the prevention programs. And we have initiated this prevention program across the states for the antenatal mothers. The newborn screening has been initiated. The counseling of adolescents to come up for the voluntary screening, which is all equally important for us. And also we have started with a CSR activity that is called Coal India Thalassemia Bal Seva Yojana, where we have able to take up around 157 transplants in 2-3 years, and where Thalassemia India has been a partner to this. So all these small works, I should say, has been done across the country, because it's a big country, and we have come up with the voluntary screening in a mass way, because it is important that the screening is being done and the prevention is being taken in a proper manner, so we reduce down the burden in coming years. And our target is to at least reduce down this burden to 80% by 2030. So with these vision and mission, we are just working that these ideal services which are required for the prevention and management of haemoglobinopathies are being taken in India as a special intervention, which is more required. And for safe blood, we have planned to have the blood at the peripheral level. As you understand that in India, we have around 36 states, and we have much of the sub-districts and the villages. So till the sub-districts and the villages, we are just trying to have these facilities established, at least in a smaller, where the patient doesn't have to go here and wait there to get the facility. So with these concerns, I am thankful to you all to give me an opportunity to speak, because earlier I was not able to do the things. Thank you so much once again. And I'm thankful to TIF, fellows, everybody who has come across, and we need to be united for this cause, because this is an important cause and we need to be united for this. But we have very good voluntary organizations in India. I'm thankful to everybody for this, because they have been handling the job very well. Recently, we have the blood issues, which was recently taken by the patients group. And this was something very good, which has, today we have released the guidelines also for how many days we want to after the post-vaccination. So that is 14 days, which India has taken up a lead on, saying that post-COVID vaccination, at least 14 days are required to go for the voluntary blood donation. So those things has also, because we don't want to have a shortage over here. With these words, I'm so thankful for everybody, and thank to all the TIF people, Shobha Tuliji, and especially you, because you have been coordinating with this. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed to our esteemed guest there in India. Thank you very much indeed for your contribution. And thank you very much to everybody that's contributed to this event today. And thank you very much to all of our audience, all of you those who have been there watching this today. It's been a very insightful and informative event, I think, and there's lots and lots of things to be thinking about in terms of the future responses and treatments of thalassemia around the world. It's been a real pleasure to host and moderate this event today. And remember, as these words, as we depart this event from the Federation, unity is our strength, knowledge is our power. Happy International Thalassemia Day, and goodbye from me.